Sean's POV. Luckily, we arrived at the audition just in time. If Ray hadn't been nagging me non-stop, we would have arrived earlier, exactly as I planned. His constant reminders still echoed in my head as I stepped inside the building. The moment I entered the room, I instantly noticed Liam and Rosie. They stood on opposite sides of the space, an invisible line separating them. The tension was subtle but unmistakable, something only those who truly knew them would catch. Both actors had been my friend, but I am closer to Rosie since we had acted in 2 dramas already. As I walked in, I caught a few amused gazes. Some are curious, some were surprised. Maybe they are wondering why Sean L. was auditioning. I greeted everyone humbly as I passed by. A few faces were familiar, people I'd worked with before. Others were strangers, their eyes assessing, measuring. I waved a hand at Liam, but my feet carried me straight toward Rosie. It had been a long time since I last saw her. 3 months, to be exact. Long enough for life to change its pace, but not enough to erase familiarity. You're really here. She grinned before pulling me into a hug. She knows how obsessed I am with RAB. I told you I would come, I said, hugging her back. It was no secret in the industry that Rosie and I were close friends. The kind built on shared schedules, late-night shoots, and unspoken understanding. You weren't really kidding when you said you wanted this so bad. Good thing your label agreed for you to audition. 'Cause you know. Knowing the scheme, she said with a weird smile on her face. It had been too awkward for her and Liam that people are praying for them to be a real couple, and yet they don't talk to each other. I smiled at her. Actually, they didn't agree at all. I came at my own risk. She gave me an amused look, her brows lifting slightly. I haven't seen you this rebellious before. Do you really want to meet him that much? RAB is such a genius. I've been a fan of his work since since his first book. I'm totally curious about what he looks like. Rosie laughed, lowering her voice conspiratorially. I heard he's an old geezer who is a retired police officer who investigates real crimes. That's why all her crimes in the book are all thrillingly chilling. She shivers as she hugged herself. I laughed with her. I heard that too. Every time I read his book, I imagine a brute old man. But Rosie, I also heard he was a fan of you and Liam. I gave her a teasing smile. So that suggests he's soft-hearted too. Rosie's smile turned awkward, her laughter bitter. I heard that too. If he only knew. She cast a side-eye toward Liam's direction, standing right across the room. I followed her gaze. There was no denying it. Rosie and Liam delivered a phenomenal performance in their last movie. On screen, they were flawless, magnetic, convincing. But off-screen, they were the most awkward co-stars I'd ever known. Maybe it was because what they felt for each other was real. Too real to be acted out casually. And because they didn't have the courage to face those feelings, they chose distance instead. Avoidance and silence. I bet RAB's gonna hit on you since he announced he loves all your movies. I shifted the topic, stepping closer so I could look at her face again. She rolled her eyes. I hope he is one of those gentlemen, not the other type. I nodded. I hoped so too. The character attorney Lance Collin was a gentleman. Sharp, principled, restrained. And for reasons I couldn't fully explain, I found myself hoping the man who created him was the same. I still remember the first time I read his first book. I was on tour in his country when I asked Ray to buy me something to read. When I can't sleep, I read. So eventually I can. That time, Ray bought me 5 books. The first one that caught my eye was a sunflower-bright cover titled Twisted Sunshine. I thought it would be boring. Perfect for sleep. Then I opened it. The first chapter was a murder scene. I couldn't stop myself from flipping the page the moment my eyes finished the last paragraph. I remember coughing, like I'd forgotten how to breathe. The story followed a girl named Sarah, a lively, positive girl. Her entire family had been murdered. She was the only one who survived. Each chapter unraveled clues while quietly walking Sarah through her trauma. Slowly, she learned how to open up to people again. Slowly, she learned how to smile. At the same time, the burglar who murdered her family was caught. It was satisfying, almost comforting, until the last chapter. Sarah was finally home, after everything she had been through. And through her point of view, it was revealed that she herself was the real culprit. Imagine how chilling I felt that night.
RAB's POV. I was already on my second cup of coffee, the bitterness lingering on my tongue longer than it should. Instead of waking me up, it only made my nerves feel tighter and edgier. Hours had passed. A dozen faces already greeted me, and I still hadn't seen the people I was actually waiting for. For someone as busy as I am, waiting has never been a virtue I admired. I prefer things done swiftly, efficiently, exactly as they should be. My time is far too precious to be spent sitting still, listening to performances that fail to hold my interest. I'm not someone who scatters attention carelessly. Once my eyes settle on something, someone, that is where my focus remains. Fixed, unwavering. Everything else fades into irrelevance. My fingers tapped lightly against the table, nails clicking softly against the wood as another auditionee exited the room, eyes red, shoulders slumped. I didn't bother to look at the next folder yet. What was the point? "Red, control your facial expressions," Diane whispered, leaning closer without turning her head. I slowly turned to her and shot her a glare, the kind that could silence a room, the kind that made grown men rethink their life choices. "This is my look, trying not to show you how pissed already I am," I said, forcing control into my voice so it wouldn't drip with irritation. She glared back at me, completely unimpressed. "You are scaring the auditionees." Then she added, almost accusingly, "The last auditionee was almost crying when she was done, because you are too fierce." She tilted her head. "Can you calm it down and try to smile?" "How can I smile when I'm already pissed? There had been several auditionees for Lance and Alara, but why haven't I seen Rosie and Liam? Are you sure you invited them?" Diane sighed, then finally turned to face me fully, her patience thinning. "Yes, we did, and they are already in the waiting area." "If so, then why haven't I seen them?" I said, irritation no longer bothering to hide itself. "Because we booked them last, we wanted you to see the options first before we proceed to them." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I know your mind was already set on making them your leads, but there are also other talents there that need to be assessed. Who knows, they might fit the character better than Rosie and Liam." I leaned back in my chair and let out a slow, exhausted sigh. "You're just making this too long. I'm telling you there is no other option, and I am not going to waver." Diane released her own sigh, one filled with resignation. I sighed, trying to release the frustration coiling tight in my chest. I had written the laws in my hand for Rosie and Liam, for them alone. The idea had sparked the very moment I became their fan, a certainty so immediate it felt instinctive, inevitable. They weren't cast choices. They were the origin. So how could Diane suggest there might be better options? There were no options in my mind, no alternatives, no substitutions. Some stories are born with faces, already etched into them. And this one had never belonged to anyone else but them. I stayed there, unmoving, feeling like a dinosaur stuck in my seat, arms crossed, lips pushed into a pout, brows drawn together so tightly they nearly met. Unimpressed, unamused, unwilling to budge, probably looked like a complete snob, but I didn't care. There were still a few auditionees left, and my patience had dropped to its final 1%, flickering, unstable, barely holding before it hit 0.